Hello and welcome to Everywoman. I'm Shuli Ghosh. On the programme this week, wanting divorce yet stuck with marriage, the Jewish women trapped in legal limbo. Back from the brink, we speak to our video diary diva about her victory over cancer. And Teenage Angst in America, the new magazine aimed at Muslim girls. But we start with an update on the political violence that has gripped Kenya since the elections of December the 27th. The disputed re-election of President Kibaki has caused a wave of unrest across the country, with opposition groups accusing him of rigging the polls. Now, you may remember that just before the voting began, we spoke to Lynette Muriti from Unifem East Africa about the high rate of attacks on female parliamentary candidates. Well, Lynette is back with us. Lynette, it's very good to see you again. But Kenya is in a real mess right now. Ethnic violence, mass rioting. Tell us how it's been.
We definitely have seen very many women, for instance, displaced, and women suffering the full impact of displacement. We have seen women having to provide food for their children from displacement, internally displaced camps. And, but we've also seen opportunities, and we've also seen situations where mediation is being attempted. And from the women's point of view, we've also seen women coming together and trying to discuss what would be the women's political agenda for Kenya.
Well, Lynette, we've also heard horrifying reports about an increase in sexual violence aimed at women.
Yes, there have been reports, many reports in regard to increase in rapes. The Nairobi Women's Hospital, which hosts the Gender Violence Recovery Center, has received numerous, and as of today, the reports today were that they have already treated more than 100 women. The crisis in Kenya could have led to general lawlessness, therefore leading to a general increase in crime and rape included. And secondly, we have seen with the displacement and communities beginning to be displaced, a breakdown in the social and community structures that would have existed, that would have sanctioned that this kind of crimes against women. And we see a great disruption in the social fabric and in the community structures.
Well, Lynette, the last time I spoke to you was about your attempts to get more women into Parliament. Now, not many actually succeeded. Are you disappointed?
I wouldn't say we are disappointed, because we do have 15 women that made it in the elections. And although this is still very low in terms of the percentages of women in Parliament, it's close to 100% increase from the 8 women that were elected in the previous Parliament.
Do you think the message is getting through about female leadership then?
The message is getting through, and I think we also need to consider that the message would need to get through at 2 main levels. First and foremost, the message needs to get through to the communities. And what has happened is that for many of the women that have made it to Parliament, they have a very good development record in their communities.
Do you think the current situation is going to put women off wanting to go into politics?
No, no, no. It won't put women off, and it is an opportunity. It is, I would say, a constitutional moment, because as the negotiations go on and as the country goes on to constitutional debates, affirmative action will then also become an important issue.
Well, Lynette, we all hope the situation in Kenya is resolved, but thank you very much indeed on updating us on the situation. Now, under Jewish law, when a couple divorce, the husband gives the wife a get, basically a bill of divorce. But if the husband refuses to give it to her, she's forced to live as an aguna, a chained woman, treated as though she was still married by the Jewish community, even though the marriage is long over. That means that any relationship she has with another man is deemed adulterous, and any children she has are regarded as illegitimate. Everywoman investigates the misery of hundreds of women trapped by their marriage.
בתי דין אחרים. After my ex-husband agreed to divorce in front of a judge, he missed a dozen appointments to finalize the agreement. And then he changed his mind, saying he no longer wanted to divorce.
According to Jewish law, a man has to grant the divorce to his wife by free will. The court cannot do it instead of him, and there is a problem in putting pressure on him to grant the divorce. It has to be by free will, his free will. So many husbands refuse to grant the divorce to their wives.
Gittit Nachiel is one of dozens of lawyers who help Jewish women like Mary Cohen get a divorce after more than 5 years of legal appeals. Divorce in Israel can be a daunting task. The vast majority of the 17,000 Jewish couples that apply for divorce annually in Israel do so by mutual consent. The Rabbinical Council says that there are almost 200 Jewish women who are left in legal limbo every year. But women's rights activists and lawyers put the figure in the thousands. At a conference in Jerusalem, members of civil society are attempting to define how civil and religious family laws deal with Jewish divorce, or Miseret get.
The problem is not the law per se. The courts have the legal tools to coerce men into divorcing their wives, by either freezing their bank accounts and revoking their driver's licenses, or even jailing them. But generally, religious judges don't use all the legal tools available to them, because they are conservative men.
In practice, a rabbinical court's decision depends almost entirely on a man's desire for divorce, or his objection to it. Women with children seeking a divorce often have to wait for years and are frequently forced into living in dire poverty. Because they are in legal limbo, they do not qualify for the rental subsidies or child care assistance normally available to other single parents in Israel. Rabbi Moshe Biton describes how he sees the role of women in the divorce process.
One should understand that a woman is not active. She is passive. Even during the divorce action, she only extends her hand. She does nothing else.
Some Israelis, like this Australian-born women's rights activist, Kylie, had faith that the rabbinical authorities would work with women to make divorce easier.
Growing up as a Jewish woman, you do see the rabbis as a source of justice and kindness and spirituality. And without taking away from that, it was a shock to discover that that wasn't necessarily the case with these rabbis, who are the ones who unfortunately control the system here.
The hearings that take place in the rabbinical courts are only summarized, and essential information on the woman and her situation is frequently omitted. Without this information, the woman cannot appeal any decision made by the courts. Legal sanctions against men who refused to grant their wives a divorce were used in less than 5% of all cases. Worse still, rabbinical courts continue to allow around 25% of married Israeli Jewish men with rebellious wives to take a second wife. But for women, marrying a second man is not a legal option. Ruthie is an Israeli woman who asked that her identity be protected. She spent 6 years getting a divorce from her husband. And even though it has been 10 years since that divorce was made final, she continues to live in fear of him.
But the problem is that the rabbinical court had all the reasons to force him to give me a divorce, but they didn't because they were afraid.
They were afraid of violating rabbinical law.
They encouraged him to to ask me to pay him some amount, because if not, it can be considered that they forced him to give me a divorce, which is not allowed according to the Jewish law.
Now remarried with children, Ruthie says her former husband was imprisoned for violating court rules, towards the end of her 6-year legal ordeal.
Eventually, on the session after 2 weeks in jail, he was willing to give me divorce. So I had to pay him an amount, and I have to give up and erase all his debts to me and to court. And then I got a divorce.
Women are being extorted in order to get their divorce. Women pay for getting the divorce. By money, they give up child support, custody rights in order to get their divorce. And many husbands use this situation and extort. You know, they come to the court and they say to the judges and to the women, you want your divorce? Okay, pay. I want this and that. And unfortunately, the judges in the religious court cooperate with these husbands. They can put pressure on the husband to grant a divorce. They can even put him in jail. Instead, they put pressure on the woman to give up. They say, no, come on, settle. He doesn't demand so much, you can do it, you can settle with him. And the result is that many women, as I said, pay for the get.
A very difficult and discriminatory situation they're faced by many women. Well, still to come here on the programme, a new magazine for a new generation. Muslim Girl is aimed at American teenagers trying to fit in with a Western lifestyle, but holding on to their Islamic values. That's coming up after the break.